That is still so weird. Like, it is not zoomed in properly, or zoomed out properly, I guess. Let me see if I can fix that. All right. I mean, that's as good as it's going to be for now. I had to zoom out a little bit. We're turning off the still face, too. Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? If you are watching this not live, welcome. And thank you for being on here and checking us out. If you are here live, prove it. You're sending me chats, or it didn't happen. But, yeah, so we're going to figure this out day by day, I think. We're just going to try to get this to work better and better as we go. I have a lot of interesting topics for you today. The current event stuff and why it doesn't matter. I mean, if you look at the stream title, that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about today. This is the relationship and parent coaching stream. That's like what today is all about. But it's really about the fact that if you're trying to be a good parent, or if you're trying to be in a relationship, getting caught up in all of these day-to-day current events is a great way to not be successful in those endeavors. So we're going to talk about those. I'm going to talk about media and how, there's no confidence in media as I sit here as a media person. But more importantly, I want to talk about some articles that probably aren't making as big a headlines or big a splash because, people don't care about these smaller ticket items, although they are sometimes much more interesting to me and hopefully to you. And I don't want to just have the same kind of channel saying the same kind of things that literally everybody else is every single day. I mean, I love the people that I follow. I love watching their stuff and I love talking to them and everything, but good Lord, if I see one more thing about Mar-a-Lago, like I can't, man. I can't keep talking about the same thing over and over. We know it's bad. We know it. We're living in a banana republic. It's been that way for a long time. If you're surprised by it, you just haven't been paying attention. And I just don't think that we need to talk about it anymore. I think that we can kind of move on and talk about more interesting things like a potential vaccine for Lyme's disease. I know, right? Like, that's actually good. That's good stuff. That's something that we want to know about. It's something I want to know about. I want to talk to you guys about. There's some entertaining things that we're going to talk about today. But overall, today's theme. What is today's theme? The theme of today is focusing more on your relationships and longevity of time instead of every single day having media or news articles or Facebook chop up your life into the current event of the day, the flavor of the day. It's not even a flavor of the week anymore. It's like the flavor of the day. There was a flavor of a couple of years. It was called COVID. Then we all forgot that we had COVID because we were in a war that we weren't really in, but we wanted to be in. And then we got out of that. That stopped being popular. And now we were talking about a different disease. And, the economy sucks, but now it doesn't suck because we redefined what suck means. There's just, man, it's non-stop. And it's abusive. It is literal abuse. Emotionally, mentally, and in our relationships, it creates a lot of strain because you can get really stressed out about this stuff. Even though it's either you can't do anything about it or it's something that just has nothing to do with you. Like, I don't know why you're worried about it. So we're going to talk about those things. I will be answering questions, obviously, throughout the chat today. I will do my best to keep it to 2 hours. But, one of the things that I realized in doing these live streams at 8 o'clock at night is, guys, I talk all day. And some of my days, like this morning, started at 6 Eastern. So I've been talking for 14 hours. I had some breaks, not going to lie. Had some food. Had a banana this morning. Had some lunch. Got to go for a nice walk. But I was talking the whole time. And by the time it gets to 8 o'clock, I mean, the coffee is getting cold, even in a thermos. And I wanted to brew new coffee because I would love to do the double sip with you guys. I really do like drinking coffee with you. but I gotta do decaf because it's 8 o'clock. And by this time of day, usually I have 2 thermoses. I have my Coffee Brand coffee thermos. Get on me for that sponsorship because I really do actually enjoy the coffee. It's really good. I'll talk about that later. But then I have a Thermos brand thermos, and that's also, it keeps the coffee very, very hot until about 5 o'clock. And I made the coffee at like 7:30 this morning, so that's not bad. That's like a fantastic thermos. I'm sorry, Jeremy, but the Coffee Brand coffee thermos keeps my coffee hot until about 11, maybe 12, which is good, actually, because I like to drink that one, and then I drink the other one. The point is, it's a lot of coffee. I'm drinking out of my R2-D2 mug in the morning, maybe my Cthulhu mug. They're both fairly large mugs. I'm drinking coffee in the afternoon because I'm constantly talking. And coffee is a fantastic beverage for me. I don't do creamer. I don't do sugar. I just put pumpkin spice, like the actual pumpkin spice, not the nasty creamer. And we'll talk about that because it is fall almost. We have 82 days, I believe, until Halloween. But who's keeping track? So I have a lot of coffee, and I would love to get some decaf. Like, honestly, some good tasting decaf. I have a coffee maker. I may set up the coffee bar cam so you guys can see me grind the beans, put in the coffee, put it all together. I have a conical filter. It's like a really nice system. It's an older Melita coffee maker, but it's really good. And then you can watch me put the pumpkin spice in, pour that beautiful black gold into the mug or into a thermos. I have some mugs on my shelf. I'm not forgetting my roots. 2 years ago, we were always doing the mug of the day or the mug of the week. I mean, I have enough to do a mug of the day, let's be honest, for about 45 days. So we'll do different mugs. And obviously, feel free to send a mug if you think that your mug is cool enough to make it onto the show. Maybe. It may make it, but, you know, there's so many mugs. There's so many mugs. So I have to figure that out, but I do want to have a coffee cam probably. It's going to be like the Dr. Ocelotopus cam. I have to run like a 25-foot USB cable to get that puppy in there. And then I could drink decaf, and that's good for my throat, and then I'll be able to easily do these 2-hour streams. But for now, I'm going to do it as long as I can. If you keep it interesting, if you guys are saying things, if you're talking to me and I'm answering questions and I kind of get into it, definitely I will stay on. Also, if Whiteboard Cam, which I will prioritize over here, if I end up using Whiteboard Cam, which is still very glitchy, like I don't know what's going on with that. But I will be on that if there's something that you guys want me to demonstrate or discuss that is more detail-oriented than just me talking. I do want to kind of break that up, and I'll do that more in my non-live videos as well. I'll be talking using the dry erase board. I'll be drawing diagrams and things like that because I really do enjoy doing that. So I will try to be on for the full 2 hours, and I'll hang out. We'll talk. We'll have a good time. So let's get into some of the articles, but I wanted to kind of preface it with some housekeeping stuff. I am trying to make this, like, for instance, the camera I'm trying to bring back so that it shows a little bit more than just my face, because, good Lord, that's terrifying if you're going to sit there and stare at my face all day. And if you're into that, please go away. No, that's fine. You can do that. For now, that's okay. Later on, when we get more discerning, though, and I'm not going to like you face starers. So, all right, let's go over to our articles of the day. I also will have more overlays and all that stuff. We'll get back to it. It's just, it's going to be a little bit of Rust. And if you guys are watching the Rust Rivals right now, the Twitch Rivals on Rust, it's really cool. I understand that you're watching that and not this. That's cool. But you're watching this as a video, and I appreciate that too, because I'm definitely watching that most of the time when I'm not listening to Kit Boga. So I'm going to start this with the way that it should be started, which is that media confidence ratings at record lows. And this is from Gallup, Gallup.com, news.gallup.com, just so you know that they consider themselves to be a news organization. So here's the highlights. I'm not going to read full articles. Please, if you want the description, if you want the name or the actual address of the article, I will copy and paste it for you. I'm not reading these articles all the way through because most of the time they need an editor. They don't pay for one, so it's just god-awful. And, like, I'm not a headline reader, but we are going to look at the headlines for the most part. I'll dig in a little bit, and I'll try to look at least 2 paragraphs in. We'll do our best. But here's the highlights. 16% of Americans have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in newspapers. Wow. All 16% of them. 11% have some degree of confidence in television news, which is amazing to me. I don't know who they found that said that. And Democrats' confidence is low, but higher than Republicans and independents, which I don't know why that matters. But the point is, confidence is low, even with these random people that they found living in their basement in their bunkers watching TV and never being told by anybody that these people lie to you day in and day out. I have some questions. The first of which is obviously, where the hell did you find these people that actually have confidence in media? That's incredible. But if you look at this graph from 1972, it wasn't really ever super high. It was like 39 for newspapers. 1979, it was 51 for newspapers. And then it goes like down. And then television news obviously gets worse. So I got to say, 16% versus 39%. So it's half of what it was in 1979. I think that most people have been kind of on to them for a while, that you can't just believe what the newspaper or tabloids are saying. So Gallup, the wonderful individuals at Gallup, news.gallup.com, have tracked Americans' confidence in newspapers since 1973 and television news since 1993. So it's been a minute. You know, I'm one of those people who thinks the 90s was like 10 years ago, even when it's 20 years ago. So that seems like it's not that long, but it actually has been a while. It's been 30 years. Yep, 30 years. You heard that right. So they saw declines in confidence rating for 11 of the 16 institutions measured, which we're not going to get into all those institutions. One of the things that I wanted to dig into was sample size and things like that. Gallup typically does not give that information, but they give like big graphs and they try to make themselves look really good. So, and again, I don't care about partisan confidence. That really doesn't matter to me. They have a nice bottom line, though. And I mean, again, it's an article. You can look more and look at the complete question response and trends. It's a PDF. You can download it. If you ask me to, I will. I don't want to, but I will. And if you guys want, that's fine. So, but they talk about basically that there's a growing distrust, which, again, since it was 39% in the 70s, and now it's 16 and 11, doesn't seem that bad. I mean, it just seems like some people got smarter, if anything. You know, like to me, it's good news. I don't know about you guys. Like, I think this is good news. It's just literally people being like, yep, can't trust the media. Awesome. So this is good news. I wanted to start with this because I don't want to bury the lead, because we're going to talk about some articles of things that are going on and why it just doesn't matter. Like, when you're looking at the news, like the article that you're reading or the 14 YouTube videos on the same topic because you love your content creators, but they really do all talk about the same thing over and over. It's just, it doesn't matter. And not just because the content itself doesn't impact your day-to-day life, but look at this. Most people don't even believe the things they're seeing on TV or reading in an article. So you're reading the news. Think about how much time. Just take a second. You can type it in chat if you want, but take a second. How much time do you spend reading news articles from these 16 institutions or whatever? Now think about the fact that like only 11 out of 100 people even believe the crap that's being written in those articles. Why are you wasting your time reading all these articles? Like, I read an article today that talked about how scientists found evidence of a universe that existed before our universe. Really? How'd you do that? How do you know that? But they just say it like, yeah, there's evidence that we found these particles or whatever, this evidence of black holes that used to exist in another universe. And I'm sure they found Thor's hammer and they found all kinds of other stuff while they were looking around in there. I mean, that's just nonsense. They're just saying nonsense. Minimal time. I hope that that's a comment to how much time you're wasting reading articles. And listen, if you're one of those people that's getting paid, you know, you're at work, you're looking at an article anyway. I don't advocate for not working while you're at work, but at the same time, sometimes there's just nothing else to do. And if you're getting paid to read those articles, good on you. But just these science articles just say things. They just literally just nonsense. Well, we found proof that the universe is two-dimensional. Now we found proof of a universe before our universe. Like, but is that universe three-dimensional or two-dimensional? Well, we don't know. Most people don't even buy the crap that they're reading in these articles. So if you're spending a lot of time and a lot of stock in reading these things, I just got to tell you, you're in the minority. If you're one of those people who just reads these articles unironically, I don't care what it's about. I don't care if it's about science. I don't care if it's about geography. I don't care if it's about technology, business, finances. Those are the biggest, like, it might as well be a horoscope. Like, I honestly, just think about it this way. You're in a field like the stock market where it pays to be in the know of what's going to happen next and to trick other people into putting money into things that will then fail, and for you to put money into things that you know are going to succeed but that not everybody else knows are going to succeed, so you can buy it at a minimal price and then sell it at a maximum price. Like, that's the game, right? And then the way that these articles work and these television programs and internet shows and podcasts, I love people that listen to financial podcasts. It's like, wow, this guy's really right most of the time. Well, if they are, then do all the things they say to do every single time and you're going to get rich. If they're not, you're not. So if they're the average like the rest of the market, they're not any better than anybody else. So why are you listening to them, and why do you think they're so great? And if you don't listen to them, then you don't actually believe that they know what they're talking about. So again, it's just a waste of time. People do not believe the things that they're reading in these articles. Only 11 out of 100 believe the things they see on TV. So if you're one of those people who finds themselves thinking this really slick person, this guy on the internet talks about life coaching and psychology, and he really knows what he's talking about, you're in the minority. Most people don't. Most people do not believe that I know what I'm talking about. Most people don't believe that these scientists know what they're talking about. And this is important for relationships and parenting. I'm going to keep bringing it back to that, because when you're doing your day-to-day life and you're in your home and you're doing your nice coffee routine, or you're folding laundry, or you're making dinner, or you're hanging out with your kids, those things that you read today don't matter at all. That you're going to forget them tomorrow when you read the next day's stuff. And in a week, you're going to completely forget about that war. In a month, you're going to completely forget about that pandemic. In a year, you're going to forget about that politician that hid a bunch of stuff and then destroyed things with hammers. And then you're going to pay money for them to win again later. Our memory is so short, and we're constantly being bombarded with new information, that it's no wonder that consumer confidence in media is so low. So that's where I'm going to leave that here for now. I'll come back to it if you guys have questions about it, or if you want to comment on that. But let's go to the next thing, because this is what's called framing. Inflation cooled in July. This is from the New York Times, the bastion of good writing and honesty. Inflation cooled in July. Welcome news for White House and Fed. Prices have increased rapidly since last year, but barely budged in July. A positive development, though not yet enough for a victory lap. Like, okay. There's so much here, I don't even know where to really start, but this is all framing. The framing here is things have been getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse at a pretty fast clip. But wow, look at July. Things didn't get that much worse. This is good news. Look how great it is. I saw an article that was like, oh, gas prices are finally in central Pennsylvania going down to below $4 a gallon. And it's giving families much needed relief. No, these families have now coughed up the rest of their savings for the last 7 months on gas. And now they're not going to do that because they just don't have the money anymore. So now people aren't buying as much gas. Framing is everything. So when you're reading articles, pay attention to where you're getting your information from, because they always are going to have this spin. It's called spin. But they're always going to have this way of framing things to make it sound like it's either good or it's bad. And our brains are designed to just capture negative information very easily and very quickly, and to ignore information that we see as good or neutral. We don't really grab onto or like obsess over positive information. There are lots of reasons for that. Most of them have to do with evolution and survival. But we just don't care. So like when something like this comes up where it's like, oh, inflation cooled, like this seems like neutral or like positive information. Now inflation doesn't matter to us anymore. It's a way to get you to go from latching on to the term inflation, because that's something that everybody's been talking about for the last like 3 or 4 months, is like, oh my God, inflation's so bad and food prices are up so high and like everything is so like expensive now. Then you see an article like this out of a major paper of the time, and it says inflation has cooled. Oh, well, I guess it's time to start ignoring that inflation thing now. It's not good. It's not positive. All it has to do is frame it in a way where you can now ignore it and focus on the new product, the Iran. Like I'll show that clip. I show that clip about when I was doing this in 2020 to 2021. I was showing that clip like probably once every other month. But I'll show it. It's a great clip because it really demonstrates how we focus on things that we're told to focus on, and the way that our politicians and our corporate overlords tell us is how we're really supposed to think about it. And then even when we have questions, we have problems, it's like, no, stop focusing on that. Focus on this. So that's what I wanted to bring this article up to, again, emphasize. This is just framing. This is just to get you to ignore the thing that you might be worried about. And why does this matter in terms of parenting and relationships and family? Well, inflation's still high. Like, just because your food didn't go up another 10% this month doesn't mean that your budget isn't strained just as badly as it was in June. It just means it didn't get even worse. So snacks, dinners out, subscription services to like Spotify, Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu Plus, all these things still have to be considered and factored in. When your brain is being told, no, everything's kind of okay now, it's really easy to like forget and just bail on what it is that you were worried about before, which can cause carelessness. It can cause you to overspend and frivolously spend. The number one stressor for most people in America is money. If you ask parents what they wish they could have more of, it's usually money. They want the kids to go to camp. They want to take the kids on vacation. They want the kids to have a great holiday. They want them to have better food. They want them to have newer clothes. They want them to have nicer shoes. They want them to have sports equipment. So all of that requires money, and a lot of times that takes really like tight budgeting. And when you see something like this where it's like, don't pay attention to this anymore because now everything's normalized, nothing got better, but your brain's being told things are getting better. It's just not getting worse as fast as it was in June. But that's how framing works. And that's how media is constantly trying to manipulate you to feel a certain way about what's going on, namely your own finances, and to not care as much about that, but then to care a lot more about, say, Zelensky. Why do you even know who that person is? He vows to liberate Crimea. Do you know where that is? Right now, if I showed you a map, would you be able to show me where that is? I can almost guarantee you couldn't. And if you could, it's just because you've been watching too much of the news. So Ukraine fears Russia damage to a major nuclear plant. I found this. Now, granted, I will tell you, I found this at about, 4 or 5 pages into the news. But it's still there. It's still there telling you, hey, you should still care about this thing over here that we told you to care about. And I always have to point this out. Remember when COVID was the only thing in every news organization forever, all day, every day, until Russia invaded the Ukraine? And literally, COVID disappeared. Nobody cared anymore. All these things started to get lifted. Nobody was talking about it anymore. Everybody was just kind of like, yeah, but like Russia. Remember that? Because that's how it happened. Like, you can go back and watch. Go back and look at the news. Go back and look at Twitter. Don't go on Twitter. Twitter's a cesspool. But go back to the places where you found your information magically it went from COVID is still bad and we should be worried about COVID and Fauci's talking about the fall. And then it was like, oh yeah, but there's this place called the Ukraine and it's getting invaded by Russia, which sucks and it's bad. And I know people who've been impacted by it. But again, it's about framing. What should you care about? Well, you shouldn't care about inflation. Inflation cooled. It's cooled. You know, it's not getting bad, so it must be good. And what you should care about is this whole nuclear power plant in this place that you don't even know where it is on the map. And fears are growing. This is something that's always really important to look at, is the wording of things. Whose fears? Fears are growing over damage from Russian shelling of Ukraine's nuclear power plant and from purported Russian plans to redirect power from the plant to Russian-annexed Crimea. Fear is huge. If you look at, let's see, let's go back to the whiteboard cam, if I can. Go to full screen. Let's go to the whiteboard cam. All right. So with our glitchy camera, you can see here, there's anxiety and there's stress. Stress fuels anxiety. Anxiety fuels stress. And what happens to your brain is that you get afraid. You're shown words like fear and worry and struggle and pounce and all these negative words, and those activate the part of your brain that's responsible for experiencing stress and experiencing anxiety. And so because of that, because you're having those feelings, you start to increase your stress and anxiety through a spiral, and that makes you obsess over the information that is being brought in front of you. So literally, you're being stressed out on purpose. Because when we are stressed and we're anxious about something, it's what we care about more because we want to eliminate, we got to kill that anxiety. We got to get rid of that stress. So that information needs to be continued. I need to know more about this, and I need to figure out how to stop it. You know, this conflict between two countries that I have no control over. We got to stop this. That's how stress and anxiety work. So now that this is important, now I'm being distracted. And once again, I will say, let's bring this back home. If you're starting to stress out and have anxiety about Russia having problems with the Ukraine, how does that impact how many mental laps you can take about what's going on inside your own home, inside your own relationships? How much of your mental energy is being wasted on things that you can't do anything about, but you're super stressed out about, super anxious about, because it has words like nuclear power plant, fear, and all this stuff like put in front of your face. So ask yourself, how much time is being wasted now? You're told to be afraid. You're told to stress. And you're home. You're reading article after article about this, or you're watching a video about it, like, because this is bothering you. But why is it bothering you? Because you were told. And you have to look at this guy who like stopped to sit on some stairs to get a photo shoot in the middle of a war. That's why you're being told. There's pictures, big scary military guy. We're in front of a power plant. I don't know why we have this flag picture. You have some wacko doing some Twitch or Twitter thing. More than 100. Okay, so this is another. I didn't see this before. I just stumbled on this. More than $120,000 was raised to make a Zelensky action figure. Are you paying attention yet? Like, really, this is what we're doing? We're raising money to make an action figure of this guy. How does this help the war effort? I have no idea. But you should really care about that more than what's going on inside your own home. Then we have this interesting article. I wanted to bring this up because this is one of those things that, and again, this is New York Times, and it's one of the things that I think they're doing a good job reporting on. Because despite the fact that nobody really believes what media organizations are putting out there, every once in a while, a broken clock could be right twice a day. Good news on jobs may mean bad news later as hiring spree defies the Fed. So, like, it's kind of a lot to unpack. This is like a lot of information in this article. But Employers hired rapidly and paid more in July, suggesting the Federal Reserve may have to remain aggressive in its effort to cool the economy. There's still a difficult time that companies have in getting employees, and so they're throwing a lot at them. And they haven't tightened their belts yet. So this is talking about how the job market is remarkably strong, and that's not a good word. Remarkably meaning that, like, it really shouldn't be this strong considering how bad the economy is. So what does that mean? It could be a problem, they're saying, for President Biden later, because of course we have to look at it through the lens of somebody winning an election. Good Lord, can we just not for a second and just look at it as human beings who are concerned about one another? This is bad for a lot of reasons. Companies, especially publicly traded companies, they do what are called projections. So they say, we think we're going to make about another $500 million next year. And, you know, the economy sucks and inflation's high. So, yeah, it might be 400 million, you know, not 500 million. We got to hire all these people to do all this work so we can provide for product X, Y, and Z. Then, man, we're not making any more money. So how do we meet projections? Well, we did hire 20% more people in 2022. We could make a lot of savings and save our bottom line if we axed all 20% of the people that we hired. Now, this is not to freak you out if you got a new job. This is what I'm saying about this is be wary of going after a job right now out when you have a comfortable job where you have good job security and you're doing things like maybe just be a little discriminatory about every other company that, especially big companies that are publicly traded, throwing a bunch of money at you to get out of that secure job and over to theirs. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not giving financial advice. Because good Lord, it's the internet. Why would I do that? I'm just saying, be a little discerning. Be a little careful, because a lot of times what companies will do to save their bottom line is they'll axe a bunch of people. Just get rid of them. And it saves a ton of money because, I don't know if you know this, but payroll is the most expensive thing that most companies have for a cost, for overhead, for how their company runs. So keep that in mind. But this is well done. They go into it a little bit like how there's moderation in the market and how there's a lot of risk for the economy to tip into a recession because we're not in a recession apparently. I don't know how that works, by the way. If you can let me know in chat like how we're not in a recession. I'd love to know because definitionally we used to be. I mean the previous definition and by previous I mean the one for the last 30 plus years minus a month ago. So as we are actually in a recession, this person's saying we're very unlikely to be falling into a recession in the near term. But I'd also say that numbers like this raise the risk of a sharper landing farther down the road. So the Fed is using interest rates. They're using things to try to like stop the economy from falling apart as quickly. It's kind of like a slow landing. It's soft landing. It's called a soft landing instead of this hard, sharp landing where we lose a bunch of jobs, people lose their houses. So they're trying to do things to kind of mitigate this inflation. Good luck, because it's stagflation from the fact that we shut the economy down for 2 years. But hey, again, neither here nor there. But a strong jobs report is always extremely welcome. But what this article is saying, and what I like about what the New York Times is posting here, which who wrote this, by the way? We got Gina and Jim. Good job, Gina and Jim. They're actually making a good point that like it looks like it's a good sign, but it probably is not going to be a great thing later. So I do want to put that out there, and I want to make sure that people are aware. There's things to consider. And again, when you're looking at family, you're looking at your parenting, you're looking at your relationship. Maybe the job that you have isn't making as much, but you get more time with your significant other. That's a win. And if you jump into another job where you're like, well, I'm not really going to get to see you anymore, but it makes like $40,000 more a year, that sounds like a no-brainer. And if I was talking to you one-on-one and there was no other issue, I would probably say, yeah, it's probably a no-brainer. But if you have this flavor, if you have this context of well, what's this company's motivation for getting you? Why are they overpaying you by 20%? Maybe there's something else to consider here and be like, yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, maybe you do it anyway and then you get, I don't know. It's up to you. But again, it's just something to consider that the job market is going to tighten up. As people realize that recession doesn't really care whether or not you change the definition of it, the economy will tumble, jobs will fall, things are going to remain expensive, and stagflation we're going to be paying for stagflation for the next 5 to 10 years. Having a more secure job and a job where you have more time with family, to me right now, it just seems like that's probably a benefit. But let's end this off with some good news. And I say good news with a grain of salt because it starts with the word Pfizer. And we all know they're so good at everything. But Pfizer begins late-stage trial testing Lyme disease vaccine. I don't know if you've ever experienced Lyme disease or know people who've suffered from Lyme disease, but this is such a huge deal. Like this article, I saw this article, and this is not as big as curing cancer, but man, is it close. Lyme disease ruins lives, and ticks are getting worse and worse every year. Imagine a world where we do not have to be terrified of our kids playing out in the yard or being in the woods because we have a vaccine for Lyme disease. When I was a kid, back in the Stone Age, when we would run around in the woods, we literally didn't even check for ticks. We didn't think about it. There were no ticks, barely any ticks where I grew up. Then I went 5 or 6 years ago to the same area that I grew up, and I had 2 deer ticks fall on me from the trees in the same 2-hour period. I mean, ticks are on the rise, and deer ticks especially carry Lyme disease. It's a horrible disease. It's something I wouldn't wish on anyone. If you're not caught up on what to do, the protocol for that, always check your kids, check yourself. There's nymph ticks. They're super duper duper tiny, and they could still carry Lyme disease. Every time you go outside, make sure you're checking your ankles, your feet. If you have sandals, your hands, your ankles, check your hair, check the back of people's necks. It's really bad. You got a tick in your eye at Camp Lejeune? Wow. Relics of Raptors Gaming. Are you on YouTube? Are you watching this on YouTube? That's so weird. I would think that you'd be showing up on Twitch. But hey, what's going on? It's a stomp on the foot to make you forget your headache. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I was just looking at that you said that. But yeah, so this is a huge deal. If we can get a vaccine going for Lyme disease, this is literally one of those quality of life improvement things that's ridiculously positive. And they're in the late stage clinical trial to test it, and they want to do it. There's currently no vaccines, and it infects 476,000 people in the U.S. alone each year. That is horrible. It's horrifying. I've seen people have joint problems. People have aches and pains. They get feverish. They faint. They have fatigue. They just are in constant pain. So you can get an antibiotic treatment for Lyme disease if you catch it early enough, but it's a disease that continually comes up. It's almost like malaria. It just keeps coming up and coming up. It's a horrible disease. So if we could get a vaccine that is safe and works, wow. They're going to enroll 6,000 healthy adults and children 5 and older in their final phase trial to find out if it's safe and effective. I mean, this is man, this is the Lord's work. This is as good as the chickenpox vaccine, but even better because chickenpox you kind of get over and Lyme disease you don't. So it's a really, I mean, this is crazy. This is just crazy. And it came out of nowhere. Ew, look at this nasty ass tick. I hate ticks. I really hate ticks. Ticks are disgusting. And they're also really hard to kill. So the bacteria that cause Lyme disease are carried by black-legged ticks. A bite from an infected tick can transmit the infection. And obviously deer ticks as well. There's blah, blah, blah. Climate change is making it worse. The point is ticks are bad, okay? And you shouldn't get ticks, okay? But if they can get this going, this would be a huge boon for everybody. And I wanted to put this out there because I think it's really important for you to see that there is positive news. Now, let's go back to media confidence ratings are record lows. So most people who are looking at this article are saying bullshit. And I can't blame you. I can't blame you if you're one of those people that does that. But don't give up all hope. Scrutinize everything that you see. Talk to other people about it. Still live your life. And so like this is kind of the biggest thing that I wanted to put out there is I just went through a positive article. I went through a kind of foreboding, like, article. I went through a sensational war article and some bullshit about reframing the fact that we're all paying tons more money for everything article. And yet, none of it matters. Not one of those things matters. I mean, this matters more. The fact that I still have never heard from the attorney that is in charge of maintaining the copyright for that. And so we are going to continue to use this until I get a reply from that person that says we can't do it anymore. And when I get that cease and desist letter, we're going to do an entire live stream on that. I just want to be clear that this stuff does not super matter. I mean, the Lyme disease one, sure. And I'm going to switch over to full screen chat. So you guys, let's talk. Think about the things that we just went over today and how much you could have obsessed over 4 of those articles, 3 of those articles, 2 of the bad things. But then think about, like, what if you didn't at all? What if instead you spent, I don't know, an hour or 2, 3 days a week, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., listening to some guy and interacting with him in chat about your life, your actual life, the things that are important, taking care of yourself, feeling healthier, getting out and walking, eating better, supercharging your music list, hanging out with people who make you feel better about yourself, knowing how to look in a mirror without being critical, but also being a bit critical so that you can maintain yourself better. Imagine that. Imagine you spend some more time thinking about an activity you could do with your kids. Google is actually still great for that. You can look up activities. You can look up dating spots. You can look up really cool places to hike. You can look up nature areas, drive-in theaters, what's coming out soon, especially horror movies. There's all kinds of things you could be doing with your time. You could be spending time looking at these things. And I just think, why not? Just slow it down for a minute and don't look at those 5 articles every day, because tomorrow, nobody's going to care about the things that you read today. There's going to be 5 new things that you have to worry about. I want you to stop focusing on the Iraq, start focusing on the Iran. Or focus on your own life and your friends and people outside. Touch some grass. I know that's kind of a meme, but like touch some grass. Don't get ticks on you until you get that Lyme disease vaccine. But there's plenty of things you could be doing. And no matter what it is that we go over here, because we will go over current events, I think it is important to discuss the things that are going on in the world. But with that grain of salt and that perspective that, like, when you're done with this, maybe you guys put in some questions that you have about, I don't know, your life, stuff that you could be doing today, things that you're kind of caught up on, your stressors, having a community of people that are like, yeah, it stresses me out too. And I'm glad somebody else can talk about it. And now I can say it out loud and it's not going to bother me as much. Self-improvement, helping improve each other. That's stuff that I can get behind. I don't know about you. It just seems better to me. We can make fun of this stuff, and probably that's most of what I'm going to be doing is making fun of this stuff, because good Lord, some of the writing is awful, but also, like, you expect me to believe half the bullshit that they're putting out there? I mean, I could come up with probably 20 articles of things that I'm just like, this is horrible. This is just, nobody believes this. Nobody believes any of these things. Maybe we'll do a whole science one tomorrow. Although we do have a financial advisor tomorrow, I think. I got to talk to Patrick. But if he confirms that he's on tomorrow, I'm going to do some questions and answers about financial health. He's not going to give you specific advice about what you should do, but he is going to talk about places to save money, ways to save money, places to look for savings in your own budget, things like that. So he's a cool guy. I like him. We have a lot of things in common. Maybe we'll talk some shop about that too. But other than that, maybe we'll go over some science articles. I don't know, because I'm not going to keep them the whole time, but I do want to kind of talk about that. These, obviously, again, these streams are going to get longer and longer. The more that I go over different types of articles and the more that I get information from the program that I'm in. And Thursdays will obviously be longer just because I'm going to have guests. If you guys can think of anybody who you think would be a good guest for the show, for the Thursday show, if I can't get them in on a Thursday, I'm willing to see them on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Let me know. Email me, DM me, whatever. I know the clickbait generation, Relics. Like but we're all in the clickbait generation. That's the problem. If it's not clickbait, you didn't click on it. And sometimes the clickbait's real, but it's still clickbait. Like, I could have something that's sensational and it's real, but it's still sensational. And the problem is that now you just hover over things, and if it doesn't catch your attention, or like, I see this all the time. Like when I do live streams, people pop on and pop off. It's like, if I'm not doing something immediately entertaining or something that is stupid or goofy or whatever right away, they just jump on, jump off. That's okay. That's cool. I mean, I don't really want people who don't want to hang out and have a conversation, but we're all being trained constantly to not pay attention to anything for more than 2 seconds. It's like worse than clickbait. We're being trained to not pay attention to anything. We're reading headlines. We're not even reading them anymore. They're being told to us, like Alexa is going to say them to us. And by the way, I could say Alexa because I don't have one here. Because why would you do that? Anyway, we're being shoveled information. We're not being shown information. We're not reading, really. We're just hearing. We're hearing sound bites from other people about other things. It's one of the reasons why some of the people that I do follow, they read the article and they're there with you with the article. It's why I like to do that. I think that format makes the most sense. We may do some videos where we'll go through those and do some reactions, but I want you to see it. I'm not going to just tell you what the article says and then we're done. I'm cool with reading it. I was serious. I would download that PDF if you really want me to, and we'll go through it. I just think that we'll be down to me and you. It'll just be 2 people watching, and that's fine. I don't care. I'll do that at some point, but it's hard. It's hard to get people invested in anything that takes a little bit of time. And especially when it comes to yourself. What I have found about life coaching, and as a therapist, and my background as a therapist, what I found about life coaching is that people are the most disinterested in self-improvement. Isn't that crazy? People are the most disinterested in improving themselves. They'll spend the least amount of time. They have the least attention span. They have the lowest energy level for improving themselves. That's scary. I couldn't believe it, but I keep getting shown it over and over again. If I could hope for one thing for this channel, it would be that I could get thousands of people to be interested in improving themselves for a little bit of time. A little bit of time every week. If they spent half the time, if we all spent half the time on just introspection, self-improvement, trying some things out, seeing how they go. If we spend half the time that we spend reading articles about places we've never been, people that we're never going to meet, and things that we have no control over, man, we can make an impact. There could be something real there. Like Ali G said, war begins with a W. Yeah, so it's worse than clickbait. I really do think it's worse than that. That's why, if you know people who are interested in themselves and each other, you have friends that are, they want to talk about this kind of stuff. You want to have some topics you throw out here. I'm happy to do it. I'll bring people on from the audience. Limited. I got to at least kind of know you. You got to be around for a while. But I'm willing to put some people on here, do some Zoom calls, and talk about what you think is important in your life and what experiences that you've had. If you traveled, if you've experienced poverty, if you've experienced success, if you've gone and you've talked to people who are really successful in this area, or if you were really successful in that area. Those are things I'd like to know. I think everybody would benefit from those things. And I think with the right audience, that this is something new. This is something different. I think that this is not everywhere on the internet. I really do. I don't think there's places where people just sit and hang out and talk about how we can improve ourselves and what we can actually do to be healthier and happier. I don't know where it is. If there is a link like that, please send them to me. I'd love to reach out to those people and have them on or cross promote, because most of what I see is why everything sucks. Why it's scary, why people are terrible, why we should hate this person, why we should hate that person, why this person that we love is actually a horrible person, why this celebrity is really somebody we should pay attention to. I don't really see a lot that isn't just distraction and that isn't just nonsense. Like, honestly, I just don't see a lot on the internet that isn't a waste of your time. So I'll be on again tomorrow, and we will talk about life, your life and your finances and how to get better. If you want to be on here tomorrow, feel free. I'm going to try to jump on again at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, if you're somebody who's not live with me, that's cool. Thank you for being on here and watching this. And if there's a clip or something that you guys want to have on there, that's cool for me too. I will look for clips and then I'll post them out on YouTube as well. Thanks for being here with me today. Last thing, real quick, for the people who are here. Let me just do an overlay here. Should I bother with Rumble? Because what they're telling me is that if I'm going to live stream, right now I'm live streaming to Twitch and YouTube. I can stream to Rumble and Facebook as well. So I guess the first question is, do you think it matters if I live stream to Facebook as well? And the other thing is, it's $10 a month for the basic tier for Rumble. So if you know people who will actually watch on Rumble, I will live stream to Rumble. But it's an investment. You know, it's like every other subscription service. You're going to be paying $120 a year. So I would hope that people would actually be on here. So let me know what you think about that. Put it in the comments section if you're not watching this live. Otherwise, put it in the chat or just text me, email me, call me if you have that information. If you don't, you can't. I'm not going to give out that information too. So if you do have that, that's cool. All right. But that's pretty much all I wanted to do. I wanted to wrap that all up. I'm going to try to do some music to end off. I know Miss Nick said yesterday that didn't turn out great. But I think it's just because I turned it down. So we're going to wrap this up. If you have any questions or comments, again, speak now or forever hold your peace. Otherwise, we're going to do this outro. We're going to kick it out at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Do my best to be 2 hours. But again, it's got to be interesting. I'm not just going to be on here to be on here. So I'm going to have the information. I'm going to have an interview. We're going to do it until it's not interesting anymore. And then I'm going to get off. So here we go. Here is Stillface once again. And I will turn this up for you guys. Have a great night. Thank you guys very much for being on. I love at least some of you, but probably most of you. And I'll see you tomorrow.